Okay, so I want to make a little video here because there's something that I've been thinking about a lot recently, and actually have had quite a few conversations about recently as well. And I've just got some thoughts that I want to get down, and also it's a bit of a response to a video that Rick Beato put out a few days ago as well, about the same subject. So the subject basically is about AI and how AI is affecting the music industry and the creative industries, and how it will continue to affect the industries, or those industries, or any industry really. And yes, what are the good things, and what perhaps are the bad things? I think first of all, initially my response in terms of the conversations I've been having, or let's say my thoughts around the subject, have been slightly, I've been feeling a little bit anxious about the whole thing, to be honest with you, because the first things I saw, really, I'd say this wave of the AI stuff was videos where people had used an AI version of Liam Gallagher's voice on a new Noel Gallagher song. So basically, yeah, Liam's basically singing one of Noel's new songs of his solo stuff, the High Flying Birds, and the first one that I heard was really, really good. I mean, it was really realistic, and in actual fact, it sounded really good actually hearing AI Liam singing it, but it sounded really good, like the way it was done. Then I listened to a few other things, and they weren't as realistic. You know, there were some artifacts, and you could tell that it wasn't him singing it. But the first one, I think, because it happened to be in the register of Liam's natural voice, it just seemed to work really well. And I was like, oh my god, this is crazy, because I hadn't really heard much of this stuff, and I know it's been on the internet for a while, but I hadn't heard it. Then I went and listened to lots of other things, like, you know, Liam singing Don't Look Back in Anger, and then Paul McCartney singing some Oasis stuff, and then all sorts of different things. You know, you go down a bit of a rabbit hole, but I didn't go too mad of it, but I was just curious to see how it might sound. I heard Kurt Cobain singing something and stuff like this, and then this spurred a lot of conversations with people that I know. One person in particular who actually loves Oasis as well, so we tend to talk about Oasis a lot, so that's why we were talking about it, and then also generally about the music industry. But then also the conversation sort of veered off onto the wider impact of this, like in the respect of, obviously, you know, people using people's voices without permission and creating, whether this is on the political scene or even in the personal situation, where somebody could create a recording of you saying something that you never said and then post it on social media, and then people think you're saying this thing. And that could obviously happen on the political landscape, it could happen in your own life, it could happen on social media and cause chaos. So if this, of course, this there's huge amounts of ethical issues around this, in terms of people misrepresenting people, and also using the likeness of your voice when you have not given permission. So I suspect around that area, I mean, initially that did make me feel quite anxious, thinking like, oh my gosh, you know, can you believe anything you hear, or eventually I suppose see, because I'm sure this AI stuff is going to move into the visual, well, it already is, but it's going to move probably very rapidly into the visual stuff as well, where you don't even know if, you know, I mean, we've seen things like that already with like the face replacement stuff, but it's getting more powerful. So yeah, when you see something on social media that's meant to be like a news thing, and then you're like, well, is this real? Well, we don't know. Anyway, what is real, you know, but in the respect of, can you believe your eyes? Can you believe your ears? You know, it's quite worrying. And obviously that's really a whole other topic and conversation in and of itself. But I think the feeling it left me initially was one of kind of trepidation and fear and worry about the future in that respect, and then bringing it back into the music side of things, which really what this video is about, how it's affecting the music industry and the creative industries. I don't want to make this video too long, but I have got quite a lot I want to say, and I've got some notes up there, so I'm going to try and just rapidly get through it, and maybe I'll make another one and expand on a few of the points in this video. But with regards to the music side of things, of course, yeah, so what we've got going on here is where somebody or people are using the likeness very accurate likeness of someone's voice, and without their permission, having them sing someone else's song. So obviously the initial thing I mentioned was the Liam Gallagher situation, where you're hearing Liam's voice singing a Noel Gallagher song, where neither Liam or Noel have given permission for this to happen. So at the moment, obviously there's no real legal ramification for that, but there's going to have to be, at some point, the legality is going to have to catch up with it, in the respect that you need to have permission to do this. Otherwise, it's misrepresentation. It's a sense of like almost fraud in a way, because you're creating something without that person's permission to use the likeness of their voice. And if people are none the wiser, they might actually think it is that person singing. And also, if there's like some, like in the case of Liam and Noel, there is some, these issues that have been going on for years, and he may not have ever agreed to sing one of Noel's songs. Well, maybe that might change. Maybe Oasis might get back together soon. It's looking like there could be some reunion of sorts. But you get my point. He hasn't said, yes, you can do this. And then there's the whole issues with regards to royalties, and this is what Rick was saying in his video. He made some really good points, and actually another one I want to pick up on, because it was a point I'd made previously already and mentioned to someone, and when he said that, I was like, wow, that's exactly what I was thinking. But yeah, in terms of the ownership around the sound of your voice, who owns that, and shouldn't you be getting paid if someone is, basically using your voice? Obviously, if that person's getting paid in one way or another, whether it's through YouTube streaming or whatever, then obviously if they're using your voice, you need to get a percentage of that, of course, because etc, etc, etc. And then on Rick's video, he put in a little clip of this other reaction to one of these AI videos with Drake singing. Well, AI Drake singing, and the reaction of the guy was, really, he was really like, oh my god, this is incredible, sort of thing. So it's worth seeing that, just for the watch Rick's video, basically, because it's a great video. So anyway, the thing that really resonated with me or that made me think, oh my gosh, this is what I had thought about when I watched Rick's video, is that I had already thought about what's going on in the music industry now with this AI stuff, and the way that at the moment there doesn't seem to be, it's all going a little bit haywire, is like what happened in the early 2000s with Napster. That's exactly what I thought myself, and I mentioned it to someone a few weeks ago when I was having a conversation, that this is what's happening at the moment. It's all running wild. People are just uploading stuff all over the place, and sharing all this stuff without anyone giving permission to do so, and so on and so forth. And at the moment, there's no sort of policing around it. There's no legal sort of system in place yet to try and contain it. But I think, and that's something that Rick said in his video about, I think it was about Universal Music Group, that it looks like they're already thinking about things. And he mentioned about, they're like, possibly will even be making AI artists, and in the streaming services like Spotify, Apple Music may do the same, because they're already the distributors. So, and Rick really talks about that, and it's great. So it's better just to watch his video and hear what he says about that. But that made me think further about it too, because yeah, that's quite scary. And I think perhaps the younger generation won't even care if they're real artists or not. Obviously, myself being a musician, a singer-songwriter and such, and coming from growing up during the 90s with all, Britpop and guitar bands and everything else, and playing real instruments myself, and loving bands that play real instruments and play live. And don't get me wrong, I use Logic and I program stuff as well and all of that, but I come from analog tape. That's my background, and real instruments live on stage. And it's interesting that possibly young people now won't really care if it's not a real artist. And so just expanding this slightly, if you the conversation that I had, one was with a children's book author, and we were talking about how you can create AI scripts, AI stories, AI art, And myself, I'm an artist. I draw and things like that. So again, we all know this has been around for quite a while, that you can type in anything, you know, large tree in a desert with a helicopter, and then suddenly you could have this piece of artwork, or you will have this piece of artwork appear in front of you, or lots of different options for it. Some of the stuff I've seen looks good, and some of it is really freaky and is actually quite horrible looking. But the point is, in effect, that could start impacting in a negative way creatives in terms of artists, photographers, and then the guy that I was talking to, the author, was talking about photographers and how you know, AI models. So you might not even need models, for instance, because you can type in anything you want to appear as a photograph. You know, female standing in a field holding a rose in the rain, and boom, you know, and yeah, whatever. So suddenly the models, the photographer, the artists, the authors, the script writer, all the things. Something that James Hargreaves said in one of his videos, actually, which was an interesting thought about one of Noel Gallagher's recent songs off his new album Council Skies, and the song's called Council Skies, has that song been written by AI? Because there's many parts in that song that sound like previous High Flying Bird songs. So again, watch that video, because that's really interesting as well. I'll put a link to Rick's and I'll put a link to James's video. Both of them are really interesting, and both of them have made me think even further about this myself. So it does make you think in terms of the creative industry, as being a creative myself, you know, is that going to, well, it will affect us, of course, but hopefully my sort of saving grace thought is that people will, the human connection to a piece of work that's been created by a human will be the most important thing, and people will basically be able to sniff a rat. You know, they'll know, hopefully, that whatever they're reading or looking at or whatever hasn't been created by a human, and thus they won't have that emotional connection to it. That's the hope. Otherwise, yeah, it can really, you know, you can spend hours there drawing something and everything else, and then someone else just types in a few words and something appears in the style of Picasso or whatever. It's quite worrying. But anyway, so yeah, the ethical issues and the permission and all of this sort of stuff is a bit scary. And actually, when I was at university, I went to LIPA in Liverpool between 2002 and 2005. And just going back to the Napster, that was to study music, a degree in music, and just going back to the Napster idea, or the thoughts around Napster, when we were there studying, it was very difficult for them to be able to, I suspect, know what to teach us about in terms of like the music industry, because it was in such flux at the time. It was in such a, yeah, it was all over the place. And I do remember feeling that hugely, growing up in like the Britpop era and the bands era and everything else, and then going through this period where myself and going into like that music industry, playing in bands and performing and everything. But the whole industry was all over the place. And to be honest, the record labels were happily hanging on to the old situation, because they were probably making a lot from artists in the previous contracts that they'd had, and probably didn't want to change things. But obviously in the end it ended up shaking them all up, because obviously people were getting music for free and violating their own ability to make music ability to make money from the artists, because people were just stealing all the MP3s for free. In the end, the streaming services and everything else happened, and obviously we're in a totally different era now, and it's interesting. But much like because I'm one of them, although I've got a lot of vinyl, and I've got loads of cassette tapes and loads of CDs and mini discs and the whole thing, I still use a streaming service when I use it. Yeah, I use it because I haven't got my cassette tape player deck set up there, or my record player set up there, or I don't have a CD player anymore. So much like we've adapted to just streaming services are fine for most people, not for everyone. And I've still kept all my CDs and everything, because I will get them all out one day and love listening to them from CD. But how we've adapted, and how young people have grown up with streaming services and not really even concerned about physical product at all, I think it would be similar with AI. It will be that younger people possibly won't like I said at the beginning of the video, won't mind. If it's an AI artist, cool, you know, fine. And as Rick says, then you'll have like the AI Liam Gallagher, and you'll have the real Liam Gallagher. So this is what moves me on to the this is what moves me on to sort of like perhaps some predictions, and also maybe some of the good that might come from it, and how maybe it will be contained, and that there will be some form of control and policing around it that could be good for everyone. So firstly, I think one of the possibly good things about AI and being able to record a song and then have the likeness of someone else's voice sing it, it could be quite good for demoing. So for instance, like if I'm writing a song, I'll just use the Oasis thing because it's just on my mind. If I'm writing a song and I want to hear what it would sound like in the style of Oasis, and I'd want Liam Gallagher to sing it, I could then use this AI technology to have Liam sing it, and that would be a really cool thing to do. Now, I think possibly what will happen, as a bit of a prediction, just like we have plugins from Waves and Isotope and other people, where you have like CLA plugins, which these incredible producers create plugins that allow you to very quickly call up settings and channel strips that sound like them and their style, and presets. I think we'll have the same sort of thing that are endorsed by vocalists or endorsed by whoever. That will be, you'll get the Liam Gallagher voice plugin, and he will get a royalty when you buy that plugin, and obviously the plugin developer, whether it's Waves or whoever, Isotope, will get their cut. And I think that's what will happen. I think rather than, if you can't beat them, join them situation. So I think that's what's going to happen, where artists and plugin developers or app developers will come together and they will license these officially, like we saw with streaming. So it's like, okay, instead of stealing the MP3s, let's create a platform where you can listen to them on the go. You don't need the physical product, and there's a percentage for everyone, although as we know, artists don't really make anything from streaming. But I think that will happen, and I think that will be the way to control it. So like, for instance, I've got a song, one of my songs called Sparkle Eyes. I always thought that would sound really great as a kind of Killers song, and with Brandon Flowers singing it. So I thought, right, that's great. If I could get the Brandon Flowers plugin, pop it on there, then I can hear him singing it. Do you see what I mean? So I think in some respects, as long as it's official and it's licensed and it's legal, that could be a really cool thing. Also, as we know, we've seen artists coming back to life. There's been some Kurt Cobain stuff, and there's been other things. I'm sure there's Freddie. Actually, I did hear a Freddie Mercury one. It wasn't a particularly good one. The actual AI technology was a bit glitchy on it, but I'm sure this will get better when we'll hear some incredible things. And I think that's another thing that in some respects is really cool, as long as you can't get permission from that person because they're not alive anymore, but from their estate, I suppose. If they license something, then you're able to record a Queen-esque kind of song, and you could have Freddie singing it. So it's a bit of a dodgy area, but there are these sorts of things that could be quite interesting, and it could bring people back to life. We've seen it with like holograms in a way, where you might see someone performing with Elvis or this sort of thing, or if someone is on the other side of the world, you can have them be on stage with you as a hologram. Obviously this is a bit different, bringing someone back to life, but I think in some respects there could be something quite cool there. A little bit, not, it isn't the same as, but what, like ABBA have done the thing in London, where obviously their younger selves are on the stage, but I know it was their current selves who basically performed the show, and then you've had all the CGI kind of technology and motion capture, and then you've recreated them looking younger. But it's this sort of thing, possibly. Another thing is that if there's an artist, let's say a current artist, who's got to the latter part of their career and they've got problems with their voice, and then they could have an AI version of their younger self singing, then they could perform it and then use the plugin or the AI technology to have them singing as they would earlier in their career. So they could still release music sounding really good, whereas perhaps they would struggle to release music now with their current voice. So that's just a sort of thing. And also something that in Rick's video, there was an artist, he made reference to an artist called Grimes, I think it was, who said they don't mind if people use their AI voice as long as they get 50%. And I think we're going to see similar things like this, where young artists may not mind, just like we don't mind, you know, if we're performing on stage now, or bands and artists don't mind, and I can't even stop it if they wanted to, people videoing them on their phones and then uploading it to YouTube and all of that, because at the end of the day they're seeing it as promotion. And if the algorithms are clever enough, they can probably you know, sense that it's one of that they're, let's say it's the Killers. I don't know if this technology is there for live concerts, but it might be able to pick up that it's a Killers song, and then they would get a royalty from it when it's being played on YouTube. But I'm not sure about if that actually does happen with live concerts. But either way, I think most bands and artists are happy for people to be filming them, because basically it's serving as publicity for them, free publicity, when people are sharing it all over social media and everything. And for publicity of them playing live is what we need, because live shows are obviously where the money is. So I don't think young artists will mind about people using their voice for AI stuff, because they'll just see it as a form of promotion for them, as long as they are getting a royalty for it, which is absolutely only, you know, very fair that they should. So I'm going to wrap this up. So in conclusion then, I think like any technological development, it's whether it's used for good or bad. That's going back to some of the more ethical issues I mentioned at the beginning, whether people are going to use the representation of someone's voice for bad purposes, to manipulate people, to, you know, deceive people, to scare people, to control people. Obviously that's not good. Some of the good things, there's some video footage of this robot that can go into disaster scenes to help people, as long as that doesn't turn into like robots that start getting out of control. You know, that could be a very good thing, and it could be good for this as well. Similarly with what we've been talking about, there could be uses where it could actually be really like if someone has lost their voice or something, you know, they've had some illness or injury and they no longer have a voice, maybe they can use a previous version, or an AI version of their voice, how it used to be when they were younger, to speak, you know. So this is all that accessibility side of things could be useful, and really positive. And then it's like everything, it's whether it's used in a creative way or destructive way. So there's just a lot of thoughts there. I know it's a bit of a long video, but I think this is going to be it already is a huge topic, and I think that it's worth discussing, whether it be generally around the creative music industries, creative industries, or in the bigger sense as well. So that's some of the things I've been thinking of. But check out Rick Beato's video. It's called The AI Effect, A New Era in Music and Its Unintended Consequences. And then the James Hargreaves video, where he talks about Noel Gallagher's song Council Skies, and perhaps a theory. I think he poses 3 different theories about what that song, what's the concept of that song, one of which could be it's written by AI. So I'll put a link to both of them in the description and see what you think. Okay, and if you've got any thoughts about this, pop it in the comments as well, because I think this is it's a very current subject and topic, which I think is going to be even more prevalent in as we move further into the future. Cool. Bye for now.